Hello and welcome to Lewis Nichols' Live Stories in association with Shane Solomon, and I'm excited to bring on George Shelley. It's our second interview actually because
It is.
The first one was 10 years ago. You ripped me for not knowing what Stonehenge was, and yeah, I've seen it since.
Have you? What did you think?
Disappointing.
Really?
It's some rocks in a field. But it's nice to have you back on. You're doing things differently. It's on your terms. We've got lots to talk about. But let's go back to the very beginning, baby George.
Yeah.
So what was kind of growing up like for you? Were you from a close-knit family?
Yeah, my family are a big part of my life, obviously. Very musical family. My granddad's a multi-instrumentalist. My uncle is a singer-songwriter. He was in a rock band. And music has just been a massive part of my family upbringing, as well as Cornwall. You know, we come here camping every year. We go to Truan Hall down in St. Colin Major. And yeah, that was just like most of my upbringing was my nan and granddad, my mum, very supportive family, very, very tight-knit. And yeah, just there was obviously like things within the family unit that was difficult. From being honest, like there's been addiction problems within my family. There's been mental health issues within my family. But you know, we've always stayed tight, and my mum especially, she bounces back from everything. And I think I get a lot of that from her.
Are you very close? Like
with mum? Yeah. Very,
nice.
very close. And my nan. Like, my nan calls me her moon baby. Because I used to stare at the moon with her. And I'm really close to my granddad as well, obviously. Because my granddad actually bought me my first guitar.
Okay, so you are from a real musical family.
Yeah. And my granddad was the first one to get me up on stage singing at the club, he called it, in Burnham-on-Sea. And it's like an open mic night. And he would get up there. He plays piano, accordion, harmonica, guitar, and he'd play like all of the old songs from like the olden days, I say. But like, yeah, he got me up singing Take That, Rule the World was one of my first ones. And yeah, really inspiring, honestly, my family, and very like pushed me in the right direction, I think, with my music and with my sort of very creative mum. My mum is like all over the place with her creativity, but it's like beautiful chaos. She has all these different projects going on all the time, and her art is like a big part of her life. And yeah, there's a big feminine energy in my family, and I think I get that.
Do you know, we got so much to talk about because we were in the car yesterday, and I'll be honest, I did all the research for the interview, but then I had one conversation with you and I was like, okay, this is changing the whole thing because you have gone through so much, and there's been quite an absence. You know, if we're being honest, there's been an absence from you, what you've been doing, what you've been up to. So that will make sense, I think, a little bit later when we get into that. But let's go back to music, entertainment. We first kind of got to know you really from X Factor. Yeah. I know you were in a band before, but you came onto the screens as a solo artist.
Yep.
But you then were told at boot camp it was a no, you went home and you came back as a member of a band. But how did that make you feel to kind of be told no for you, but actually with other people, we think you'd be quite all right?
It was a weird one because obviously at that point I just really wanted to be able to sing, and X Factor was one of those. It's such a huge part of culture back in like 2012 and throughout my childhood. Like, because before X Factor you had Pop Idol and like all those other shows, and Simon kind of got represented as this almost like figure of like stature that's just like so well respected. I don't want to say godlike, but it's like he is this like mogul of the entertainment industry, and in some ways like his word is the final word, and everyone seeks his approval. But he wasn't on our series of the show. So when Gary said, you know, you're not quite ready yet, I wish I'd kind of listened to that a little bit more. It's a bittersweet thing because I'm obviously so grateful for the experience, and there's things I learned from it. But it did give me this sense of not quite being good enough and fear of judgment. I think with my career having been so focused on reality shows that literally you're being judged either by a panel of judges or by the public, you know, on the jungle. It's this fear of judgment constantly. And I think, you know, going on X Factor at the age I was very naive. But yeah, I think it definitely gave me some really unhealthy sort of beliefs about myself starting off. But then when I was in the band, like Uni and Jay was great. I loved those boys so much. And what we went through was a roller coaster, to say the least. And, we got through it and we're all still friends. And I think that's what's important, is that we all still love each other. And we've all been through things that only we will understand.
I mean, you as a band, you did really well. It went from Triple J to Union J. You joined the band, and it worked really well. And you had the popularity. You went very far in the competition with Louis, of course, being your mentor. What was Louis like? Because Louis is very generic. He says the same thing over and over again, but he's quite, watching the TV, he seems funny. Like Boris Johnson as a prime minister. Yeah. You think, maybe not the best for the job, but he's hilarious. That's how it felt with Louis.
Louis was almost kind of like that. He was like an uncle figure, a little bit like very charismatic, obviously. And he really believed in the acts that he was like a mentor of. I haven't seen any of the stuff, the documentary that came out about him, because it's triggering in so many ways. Yeah, I only have my own experience to go off when it comes to Louis, and he, as what I experienced from him and what I can judge him on, is that he just, wanted the best for kind of the show, and not so much for the individual, but for the band. And he obviously knew what he was doing with bands. And, as a 19-year-old, I was just turned 19 when I went on X Factor. You look up to these people and you see them as like role models and people that have a lot of wisdom, and you look to them for guidance, and sometimes that guidance isn't the best guidance.
Do you keep in touch?
No.
With the level of fame that you get from the X Factor, because it really is overnight. We see you on TV, we see a few rehearsals, and then boom, you're kind of these huge stars. Did you struggle to adapt to that at any point?
Do you know what? The whole thing seems like a fever dream. It feels like a blur. Yes, it was crazy to go from I was very kind of protected as a kid by my nan and my mum and my granddad and my family. We were in this little cocoon of the family unit. And because my uncle had experienced the music industry, I had a little bit of an idea what went on, but nothing could have prepared me for what it was. And I think, there's the fan side of it, which was that we had a lot of support. It was just after One Direction. So the boy band thing was, up there. Everybody was sort of, who's the next One Direction? What's that going to be? And there was a lot of support. And that alone was, weird to sort of process. But I think the things that you don't see and a lot of people don't understand is what goes on behind the scenes with the music industry. Because the fan support is incredible, but it's the support that you get from the people around you that is questionable.
Like, in what way? Because from what, sitting back and watching, I see the singles are out, you're in the charts, you're touring, the tours were doing incredibly well. So we see the vision of four guys living their best life. So what was going on that we would be surprised with?
Well, that's a broad.
I feel like I need one as well.
I would say I need something stronger, but I'm not. Yeah. So, I think to start this off, I want to say it was traumatizing. And I don't say that lightly. There was a lot of things that happened that I can't go into. I don't want to, because I've done a lot of work to heal from it. What you don't see is the pressure that you have on yourself to perform, not only on stage, but in your whole life. Your whole life becomes controlled. It comes down to social media, the way that you dress, the way you act, the things you say. And it just, it's you can tell it stirs up a lot of stuff in me still. But I've was diagnosed with the PTSD post all of this, and I'm still trying to figure out how to live with a lot of it, because it was a lot. I went down some really toxic, unhealthy paths, and had to reel myself out of them, and that took a long time. What you don't see is the substances that are around you constantly. You don't see the pressure that's put on you from, you have to be this person whilst we're going to expect you to be this person. We want you to give every ounce of your being whilst not give you the time to recharge. We're going to tell you, who you need to be, and then behind closed doors expect something different from you, which was very difficult for all of us. Even the music, when it comes down to the music, the first album was all pre-written by Steve Mack, who used to work with JLS and One Direction and The Wanted. So there was never any creative freedom. We were never given a voice. I always say, like, I didn't really know who I was throughout that whole period, because George Shelley became, a public name, and he was this straight boy in Union J who was very happy and smiley all the time. And that's what all my Instagram posts were. That's what I was having to project to the fans, to my family, to the people around me, when, like, deep down I was lost and confused and angry and just felt like I didn't have anyone to talk to about what was happening. And I was just spiraling throughout the whole time, I think. And all four of us had our own individual kind of journey and issue throughout the band, throughout Union J. But yeah, it was really hard to find someone that you could really take solace in and someone that you could trust. I developed massive trust issues from what happened. Because you think people have your best interest at heart. You think people are your friends. You think people are there to support you. And then they're not, so...
Do you know, in the time I've spent with you, you have such an innocence, in a sense of you and even with Rory, you just have this sincerity, and to even hear you talk now, to imagine you going through that is quite something, because you're someone that likes to express and just be happy. So to be contained for so many years, I can see why it's led to, because we spoke yesterday, you've had quite intensive therapy to get over something that should have been the most joyous years of your life. It's turned out not to be, which is, that's a sad, really sad situation.
It is, but I've been able to find the gratitude in the experience. And I think this silencing and this putting you in a box, putting you on literally on the box, the TV, and containing an energy that should be being almost harnessed and put into something good. Like, all four of the boys in Union J, all four of us had a lot of passion about the band, and we were all creative boys. We all wanted to have a say, and we tried to, but it was so hard to, get a word in amongst the noise of it all, that you just felt like either your opinions weren't valid, your ideas weren't good enough, or you just didn't matter. You, George, didn't matter in the product of what Union J was. And I think we all felt that individually throughout the period. So yeah, it's sad. But at the same time, I can look back at it and think, I managed to achieve some incredible things that I never ever thought I would be able to achieve. I was following my heart the whole time. And that amongst all of it, even through all of the crazy stuff that went down, I survived it. And that I'm not a drug addict. I'm not in a place of just absolute pain and turmoil. And that I'm not which there has been moments throughout the last however long, 10 years, you said, that, it's got really dark and it's got really bad. And I've turned to bad coping mechanisms. And I've crashed, I've hit rock bottom, and thought, that I peaked in life, that I was a wreck, and that, I was washed up, kind of thing. And you get tarnished with such a bad brush with X Factor as an artist, that you think it's impossible to kind of get through. So for me, I closed my heart off to music. I closed the idea of me being a creative, an artist, off completely. And for a good few years was just in this bad loop of who am I? What do I do? What's my next thing in life? How am I going to ever achieve anything like that before? Because it was an achievement, and I see that, and it was incredible. I mean, we played to some amazing crowds, and we did some incredible things. But it's just like, for me, that pull, this like to and fro between like, you know, I have to be grateful for this experience, to like, I can't believe what happened, and I can't believe, you know, the things I was introduced to, the things I saw, the things that the positions I was put in, the environments I was put in, the environments I let myself be put in as well. There's a lot of like self-blame and guilt that comes with it. And yeah, as you can tell, like I've had to go in to do the work, because it's been, I mean, like, yeah, there's been times where I've been really, 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 really upset and wanted, you know, blame myself, hurt myself, and wanted it all to end, you know. So I feel I'm going really deep, but like this is just it, you know. This is it. And I said to myself, especially now, like if I'm going to come back and do interviews like this, if I'm going to come back and step back into this industry, it has to be on my terms, and I have to feel comfortable with saying stuff that a lot of people don't want me to say. And there's, you know, been times where I've been in absolute fear of saying things. And yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. But I think creativity as a whole throughout Union J wasn't like nurtured ever, I guess.
You know, I've never done this in an interview. So obviously before an interview, I loads of research. There's 10 cards here full of questions: X Factor, Union J, chart success. But I'm actually going to put these down because I feel like with this interview, I think it's so important that it's about you. And rather than talk about things that were clearly traumatic, I think we should focus on what's coming up, because I was lucky enough, Shane's been lucky enough to hear some really good news that people will now be aware of when this goes out. And I think it's interesting to explore the intensity of what's going to be put out there. And I want you to tell your story. So the good news is you're back and you're doing what you love, but you're doing it on your terms.
Exactly.
Which I think is so important. So if you could tell us about the comeback and how it started and who you're working with, because
funny word. It is I mean, like, it's not so much a comeback, but yeah, I get what you're saying.
Because it's been 10 years is huge. I mean, as a distance of not hearing music and not having that kind of, especially fame, you know, to be on TV. So 10 years is huge. To come back with what I've listened to is quite something. And I've got the song in my,
Yeah. So, I mean, throughout all of this, I have always written. That has been something that has been a saving grace. And it has been song. I've always songwritten since I was a kid. And, you know, I've been inspired by my uncle and my granddad. And it's just something that I've always done. It's like breathing to me. So whenever I've had like a difficult time, I've always put it into lyrics, into poems, into song. And that has kind of become what I now see as a bit of a diary from those years. And then I started journaling. I started just doing 3 pages a day of creative writing and like just a stream of consciousness, which was really helpful. And then I sat down. The moment was last year. So I had my tonsils removed and it went wrong. So I was in hospital for a week. And during that period, after the 3 operations, was struck by grief again. Jamie from Union J's partner, Ollie, passed away. And it was quite a traumatic way. And, you know, it was just like a really big, it brought up a lot of stuff in me from my sister passing away. And I was just led in hospital for a week thinking, what am I doing with my life? What have I been doing this whole 10 years? I haven't moved forward. I haven't grown. I haven't developed in any sort of sense of who I am. It's just been a place of stagnant, like living. these toxic patterns of going out on the weekend, getting absolutely wrecked, and then having come downs for 3 days, like deep depressions. And I was just like, I need to make a bit of a change. I realized that there were changes that I could make there and then. There were things that I had to accept and that I had to acknowledge to be able to make those choices. And yeah, so I was, for a little bit of background of what the last like year, I guess, has been, if I haven't given it already. So like, yeah, I've struggled financially as well. You know, it's been like I have to live, I have to pay the bills, you know. And that led me to having to get a job in a cafe. So I was started off doing their social media, and then it was like, this isn't enough. I'm not going to be able to continue staying in London. Yeah, I was working in this cafe, cleaning the tables, and the manager, Alex, was 23. He had a master's in musical composition. And I was just like, why are you working in a cafe in Palmer's Green? This is so weird. And we just got chatting, and yeah, he came over one day and sat down, and I told him that I was a songwriter, told him about like the band and stuff, Uni and Jay, and he was just like, your songs are really good, mate. And I just didn't believe that. I think my songs have been such a personal thing for me. They're like diary entries. They are deep. They are dark. They are emotional. And it's been where I've poured all of my pain into around what was happening throughout the music industry stuff. So yeah, I have always thought I'm never going to put these songs out because they're not for the public. They're not for other people. They're just for me. And, you know, I play them to Rory, and he's like, these songs are really good. You need to put these out. And then I play them to Alex, and he's like, you need to put these out. And there's just always been this voice at the back of my head just being like, you can do it. Go do it. But then I'm just like, no, I've closed off to it. I closed the door on music. I know there's no career there. I know what the industry's like. I don't want to go back there. I've moved on. It's been 10 years. Like, no. Especially having realised what it did to me. So through the dark bits, through like the low moments, I was having these really big like panic attacks. And I decided I do need therapy. I need proper therapy, but it's expensive. You know, therapy is expensive. So I went to my GP, was telling them what was going on. I went on a waiting list for a long time. I had a 6-session review. Rory thought it was BPD, which is a borderline personality disorder, because I was having these really crazy outbursts, basically, destructive patterns. But then really happy. Like there is a lot of joy in me. There is a lot of energy in me. And so it was this big swing between like really, really happy and really, really not happy. So thought it was BPD, and I went to therapy, and they said, it's trauma. You're traumatized. And it's not just one traumatic event that has caused this, it's multiple. And so there's complex PTSD, CPTSD. And which you exhibit all of the, what are they called again? Like, side effects?
Dr. Rory.
Symptoms. Symptoms. Yeah. So we're going to put you forward for some CPTSD specific treatment. But it's another 1.5 year waiting list.
Such a long time.
Yeah. So over that period, that's like 4 years worth of waiting, having to be patient, having to, you know, the support is there. There's been crisis lines that I can call for when I am in a crisis. There are other support systems that I've had to put in place, which is what I'm passionate about talking about, because the therapy is there when you know what it is you need to tackle. But I believe, and, you know, having worked with my therapist for so long, it's the support systems that you can put in place yourself outside of the therapy room that are also really, really vital and very important in holding you up for the time. You know, you only get an hour in a therapy room a week if you're lucky. So yeah, those support systems for me have looked like, you know, cutting out the toxic patterns, massively drawing boundaries and saying no to people, to environments, to places that I would go that would basically feed those patterns and feed those toxic thought patterns for myself. And having a really good group of supportive friends. My mum is obviously really supportive. My nan is really supportive. But like having to limit, how much I can take on for other people and being there for myself in showing up for myself by going to therapy to begin with, knowing that I can be healthy, making the healthier choice, but writing every morning, getting it out onto a page. And I've been doing meditation. I have been doing like everything I can to support the process of therapy. And songwriting has been such a big part of that I can't ignore it now, and I've realized like that all of that shit that I went through, yes, it was traumatizing. Yes, it was painful. And I have been stuck in that for so long. I have been ruminating and I have been like controlled by it still, controlled by a controlling system that I was put in. And I'm not going to let it have control over me anymore. And I'm not going to let it stop me from doing the things I love, like singing, like songwriting, like talking. I love talking. I love connecting with people. And I love sharing experiences. And I really thrive off of creativity. And that, I think, has been stifled from an industry that try to silence you. They try to hush down your voice. They try to really put creativity almost in a cage, because that is what gives you your power. That is what gives you your freedom. And that's what gives you a voice, essentially. And I think to control people and make products of young people, you have to get them to be quiet, and you have to get them to, you have to be able to control them. Yeah. And that's what they do. They're masters of it. That's what that show is about. That's what the industry is about, It's all about marketing. It's all about product. It's all about, music comes last. It's not about music. It shouldn't be called a music industry.
Do you feel slightly vulnerable in the sense of, you just said these songs were never meant for anyone else but you, but now you're actually, because I've been in the car listening to them and you get into the hooks, but then you hear a lyric and you think, shit, and it actually stops you from kind of rocking out a bit, and it transports you into, okay, he's actually been through something here. And that's a skill in music. If you're able to stop someone grooving, but actually reflect and know what the lyrics mean. So do you feel vulnerable of people's reaction to this?
Yeah. Yeah, big time.
It's a big thing.
I'm talking about really difficult subjects here. I'm talking about things that is really difficult and fine line, because if I completely ignore my experiences in the past, I'm completely ignoring the music, and I'm completely ignoring where it came from. And without that, it wouldn't exist. So yes, it's vulnerable, but I've just had to accept that I'm a vulnerable person. And I was vulnerable. This music is vulnerable. It's like, I have to be okay with that. And I think a lot of people are in the moment vulnerable. The world is in a really difficult time in history. And I think a lot of people are feeling vulnerable at the moment. And if you can find that connection in something, then, if it helps one person, that's a job well done,
I know we had some discussions before the interview, and I know there's a lot of nerves for you in a sense of, what should I say? What should I, is it gonna, but I've honestly got to say, I've connected with the music because I connected with you, being so authentically honest. And I think you shouldn't worry about what's said in this interview, because this is how you feel. It shouldn't be edited, it shouldn't be cut, because this is your experience, and it does relate with the music. And I think it's going to do really well. We've been rocking out, and I've got the song in my head and I'm annoyed I can't listen to it when I go back, but it's, by the time this is out, it's going to be,
This is it. I love pop music. I've always loved pop music, and I've loved music videos, and I've just loved the whole package of what pop music is. But at the same time, I love rock music because I've been brought up with it. And I think a big part of this is just completely letting go of the expectations of what happens with it. I'm not doing this for fame. That's obvious now. I didn't like that side of it. I'm not doing this for money. I'm not doing this for like anything other than this is just me, and you've got to deal with it. I've got to like just be okay with being in a place of vulnerability, and whatever comes from it. I'm not even looking that far into the future. You know, I don't want to, because it's a place where you can get nerves and anxiety come in. And one thing I've really learned from all of the EMDR therapy that I've had, which is fascinating, you need to Google the EMDR. I
know it now. Yeah.
Yes,
I was like, am I meant to watch this?
Like a Jedi move, isn't it? And like I've had to learn so much about the brain and how trauma affects you, and how therapeutic music can be.
I guess it's something you got quite engrossed in because it made you realise, oh my goodness, it's because of that. So I guess it gives you an explanation.
It was you saying about the hooks and the message of the music. Like, and what it all is. Yeah, it's scary, it's nerve-wracking, but at the same time, it's actually quite exciting. Like, I'm actually really excited for people for the first time to be able to see what I'm capable of and what I'm made of, because I'm not the fake industry boy band member that was happy and smiley the whole time. I went through a lot, and I've had to accept that, and now a lot of people are going to have to see that. And if, you know, I think this is going to be such a therapeutic, cathartic thing for me to do, because I've been sat on this music for a long time, and I've almost like held on to it and kept it close, and it's been an energy that I've been afraid to let go of, and I think by putting it out, I'm going to let go of it, and I get goosebumps when I think about it, because it's like it's gonna. I feel like I'm going to have closure from it, honestly.
I want to kind of jump back quite a bit now. Yeah. You said something in the interview earlier that you were the straight guy in Union J. Yeah. Did anybody in the band or the people working close with you know that you were gay? So you had to keep that quiet?
Yeah. We had a gay member.
Yeah.
He was out. Our fan base were mainly young girls. And I was selling them, it just sounds really like self-centered to say, but the facts are I was selling more like merchandise. So it was, if you're gay, you're going to shut off a market. And so don't be gay. Don't come out. And it wasn't until I went in the jungle that I had a breakdown over it, because the media found out, because there were some really messed up relationships going on. And there was a huge power imbalance in some of them. And people caught wind of it. It doesn't take long before the cat's out of the bag.
So you were outed?
I was going to be. I get quite upset about it and angry about it. And I've had to work on that, because a lot of the anger that I had towards myself was towards these environments. And so at that point, I just said, I'm taking control back. This is my life. And I came out. And I came out as bi to soften it. Just to soften the blow. And to keep the industry happy, you know, to not shut off the fans. And it was a really challenging time. It was really, really difficult. And I look back at it and I just want to give myself a hug, and I just want to be able to say, it's going to be okay, you're going to get through this, because at the time it was just like, what is life at the moment? You're being told one thing from one person, you've got your own like gut instincts that you're just constantly having to say no to and push to the back. And when you're fighting yourself for so long, it's eventually going to be like, boom, here it is. And that is basically what this album is. It is creativity rising to the top. It is me coming out and just saying, this is me, this is what I went through. And, you know, aside from that, I've had to work on understanding that I am not those experiences. I am not that person anymore. And that the present moment is all I have. Like, fear was a really big part of my life for 10 years, and I'm now not scared, so...
And you know what's really nice is you've met Rory. So some would have seen on your social media over the years, and you've got this amazing relationship, and just little things like seeing you in the back of the car yesterday. It's like, it's so pure. So how did you both meet?
Well, Rory messaged me on Instagram, And he said, as a future doctor, you need your temperature checking.
Really?
That was his chat blind. It's cheesy as hell. It worked. At that point, it was just after COVID, and I was ready at that point to be open to a relationship, because before that, I'd only been in relationships that were toxic. And yeah, Rory came along and I was just like, where have you come from? Obviously, he is the most gentle, beautiful, understanding, compassionate human I've ever met. He's a doctor. He wants to be a psychiatrist, so he gets the brain, he understands. And he's just been an incredible listener and support throughout the 4.5 years that we've been together. And he's pushing me constantly to do the right thing, make the right choice, and just be happy. Because I think he met me at a time where, I was like, hi, I'm George, and I wanted everything to go well because I fancied him and I wanted him to be my boyfriend. But when he got to know me and saw the pain and saw all of this, he was just like, there's some stuff you've got to face. And without Rory, I wouldn't have gone and got the therapy. I wouldn't have had the support around it. He has been amazing. And yeah, couldn't have done it without him. So,
how does it feel to have someone that you put on that character as such, the George Shelley character, but actually someone that saw all of the vulnerabilities and actually said and still loved you just as much and helped and had that commitment?
Well, this is it. I felt unlovable and I didn't feel good enough. I felt unworthy. And when Rory came along, he was like, you are going through all of this, but you're not just that. You're not just your darkness. You are your joy, and that's okay. And it's worth it. And you are worth it. And it's okay to feel all of these things and to be going through what you're going through. But you are capable of so much in that you're a deep feeler. I'm so emotional when it comes to how I think and how much I feel and get affected by other people. And I wouldn't have I now see my darkness as a beautiful thing, as well as the light.
Yeah.
Because my light, it wasn't so much that I was fake throughout being happy, because there were happy moments and I am a joyous person. I'm very enthusiastic about life. I've got especially when I start talking about the good stuff, this is it. I can go either down the dark path or I can go down the light path. And either one is a pool. It's a big pool. And when I get in these dark moments, it's not just I feel a bit sad or depressed. It's real heavy shit. But equally, I've just been able to turn the needle and go down the path of good with being creative and being able to, feel safe in my environment, feel safe in releasing music, feel safe in talking. Hadn't planned to go this deep with you even, because I just want to keep it as focused on the music as I can. But the problem is I am a talker. And when I get started, I struggle to stop because there's so much I've got to say. And there's so much behind it all, so much emotional weight behind it all, that it's just blah. You either have all of me or none of me. And that's what it's been.
It's a good thing as well. Like you saying that, all of me, it's life stories. I think people hearing just what you've gone through and how it's led to, if we spoke about just the music, that's a promo, and to hear what's gone into that, it makes everyone realise that's not just a few months of writing, that's 10 years or more of, it is trauma, You spoke yesterday that you're involved in, is it a grief charity?
Yeah, Grief Encounter.
How did because you mentioned about your sister earlier on. Now,
Harriet.
I remember seeing all the news articles. That's something that had a big impact on your life, because you said earlier you are from a close family.
Yeah.
So if you don't mind going into a little bit in the sense of how did she pass?
So Harriet passed away just, it's 2017, and it was a shock. She just graduated as a midwife, and she was the brightest, most intelligent, most lovely, heartful, beautiful soul. And yeah, she went on a night out with some friends and had a road accident and was in ICU for a week, and that was traumatic in itself. And it was a head injury, so trauma to the head. And this is what I've learned. Trauma is, you've got physical trauma and you've got emotional trauma. There's so many different sides to trauma. She didn't make it. And because I was in the public eye, I had, before we knew it, in the hospital, it was in the news. I'd just been dropped from the job I was doing at the time. So it was like big news. One of my friends remembers seeing it in an airport and just being like, shit. But I think what I didn't realize at the time was didn't give myself enough space or time to process it. I went straight into recording a documentary for BBC Three called Learning to Grieve. I didn't know how to grieve. I literally was learning how to be bereaved. And it was such, in this maelstrom of shit that I was already dealing with. And my family unit were having to deal with it. And I had to, think about them in it, which, it was, I didn't know what to do. I just didn't know what to do. And I was asking so many people for advice, always looking for the answer in other people. And I had like agents saying, you need to do this, it's a really good thing to do. You're going to help so many people. Certain family members saying, do it, it's really good. But then others not being so happy with it. And so it did fragment a lot of what it had already shattered in what losing Harriet was. And, when I made that documentary, I was under the influence of a lot of people and substances. I was on and off medication, like it was no tomorrow. It was like they threw every pill at me. You can imagine pregabalin, like SSRIs, Xanax, like just to get through it all. And I was self-medicating with other substances. And just drinking my way through it. And just looking for support and looking for guidance in the people around me that I thought were there to support me. And yeah, they weren't. So after the documentary came out, I had a lot of people then come to me with their stories of grief. And I kind of had to take on board a lot of that. Sorry. So there was a lot to process in that time. And it was a really dark period. And to come through it is an amazement, honestly. There were moments during it I just didn't think, I'll get through it, because I was dealing with losing my sister. She was just about to move in with me into London. And we were like, twins. She experienced things in my family unit that only we understood. She had been to a lot of the shit, she had been such a support through the X Factor. Thank you, mate. I'm trying to hold it back at the moment. She had been such a big part of my life up until then that I felt like that was when I hit rock bottom.
I feel there's no set way to navigate grief. That's the thing. I think everyone has their own kind of journey with that. It could be instant, it could be much later. But one thing about making your sister proud, I mean, listening to what we listened to yesterday, I think you've done that very, very much. And I think what people are going to love with this, it's very clear this is on your terms. And I think that's so special. And I'll be honest, normally when we have someone promoting something new, I don't know what to expect. You think, it's going to be a catchy song. Shane and I did not expect what we listened to yesterday. I'm genuinely mean that. It was so good, so catchy. You already know the song that I love. You know the song that Shane loves. I mean, he's rocking out in a car to it. Yeah. So you have come, like I use the word comeback because it has been, such a long time, but you've reappeared with this kind of masterpiece that I genuinely believe is going to do well. I really do. And I can't wait for the live shows, if there is any.
Yeah.
Will there?
Wow. This is the thing with the album. There's been so much energy go into it. And I wanted it to be raw. I wanted it to be organic, and I wanted it to be authentic. And that meant the instrumentation. I didn't want anything overly produced. We've recorded everything in live. The drums are in live. The band members are incredible musicians. Will on drums, absolutely like phenomenal. Alex has recorded in all of the guitars and the bass through amps, and it's all live. It's all been recorded live, so it's got a live sound. And I love performing, and I'm never going to stop wanting to perform, because it's a way for me to get out all of this energy, and because I'm now in a good place, and I'm now in a stable place, and I'm feeling really empowered by all of this, because it has been empowering to hear these songs back, because in some senses I'm singing to myself from years ago, and I'm also saying things to people that I've not been able to say, and I'm still not able to say for multiple reasons. So it's a massive release of energy, and performing live in front of a crowd is that an exchange of energy, and where it's just been firing around inside of me, and it's been put in the wrong places, and I've gone into my energy's just been put into the wrong places, and that's as clear as it is, as clear as you can make it, in the industry, the pop industry. And luckily, music has changed. It has evolved since then. So I'm just a lot more protective over my energy, who I give it to, who I allow to benefit from Joyous George, because he is fun, and I know that, but also who I confide in. And, that does go to some really horrible places. But where there is darkness, there is light. And that is, I am balanced at the moment. I am in a good place. And if I go too dark, I have to make sure I can balance it with the good stuff, because there is so much good to talk about. I said to my agent before this interview, I've just realized it's called Life Stories. Are we going to have to go through everything? And she was like, yeah, but you don't have to. And I was like, but it's really hard to skim the surface of this. I can't just, there's no top line. There's no, it was, the bottom line is it was a struggle. But I've come through it, and I've done the things I need to do to get through it. And one of those is accept that I'm an artist, accept that I'm a songwriter, and that is a big way of me processing difficult times, whatever may lay ahead. Therapy has finished now, and I am no longer on the system. What's it called when you're in the bracket of having CPTSD? My symptoms are a lot lower, that I wouldn't classify for the therapy anymore. So healed isn't the word, because I don't think you're ever healed.
Dr. Rory, do you know the term?
Yeah.
No.
You're saying you don't meet the threshold.
That's it, the threshold. Yeah, I don't meet the threshold, the criteria for the therapy anymore. So in some senses, I have moved on, and I've let go, and I've processed a lot of the trauma through the EMDR. But it doesn't mean that it's not there, and it doesn't exist, and I didn't go through what I went through. And it doesn't mean that I have to have systems in place for me to fall back on when times do get tough, because if I'm grief-stricken again, if I go through an experience that is highly triggering, my body feels what I went through back then. I have to be able to put it into something. And I feel safe and supported in myself, knowing that I can go through life on my own, as long as I have my voice, and as long as I have my songwriting, and as long as I have people around me that want to help lift me instead of drag me down, who get enjoyment and joy off of my joy and in the music itself. And, that's where I'm at the moment. And when you're in that place of peace, it's like you kind of feel a little bit indestructible when it comes to people trying to hurt you or anything that can happen. I'll handle it. I think that's a better way of saying it. I know that whatever comes my way in the future, rather than being super anxious, because the anxiety is crippling at moments, I will handle it. I will get through it, because I've always got me.
What I would say is, because I know after this interview, there's going to be moments where you think, should I have said that? Was that too deep? Honestly, I think today you've come across really well. And I think you've told your story in your words. No one has told you what to say or how to come across. You've actually just sat down, told your story in your words without it being, made into something. But there is a random thing I want to ask you. I'm a massive fan of the show Benidorm.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. I watch it time and time again. And when you popped up as the builder, I was like, what? How did that even happen? I just couldn't imagine the conversations or...
Again, it's just one of those things. I can't remember what period of time that was, like where I was in life. Like it is still all such a blur that I haven't got a clue.
So you just randomly appeared on Benidorm?
Yeah, it would have been like, you've got to go to Benidorm tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, yes. I turned into such a yes man for all of this that I was like, okay, cool, I'm doing it. And I think I flew back there. I remember it was a 2-trip thing. It was filmed over 2 days. And I was just like, yeah, I'm on Benidorm. I'm playing a member of the YMCA. And like, that's just another thing that I did. And through that, there are these moments of, I get people who just be like, oh, I just saw you on Kick-Ass 2. Like, on Netflix. And why are you on that? It's like some things just don't quite make sense because... it just doesn't, a lot of it doesn't make sense. And I've just had to accept that. I don't make sense.
Wow, I thought you were in Benidorm and Darren, the writer, said, oh, do you fancy being on the show? But you actually don't know how that happened, but you were on it.
It would have just been an offer that came through. I was signed maybe to an agent at the time who specialised more in acting than music. I think it was post-Union J, so it would have been when I was doing more presenter work. And was trying my luck at acting, but I was also presenting at the time and I had a full-time job. So it would have been in between that, and that was a really turbulent period as well because it's just overdoing it, overworked, and using bad things to cope with it all. So I can't answer that because it wasn't almost like, I just remember it being like a real stress to remember the lines and work around the show I was on at the time because there wasn't enough time in the day to do it all. And you've just got to cram in as much as you can. That it was just more, I love it. It was, I'm grateful for it, but it was stressful. It was a stressful time. But I'm obviously grateful that I had that experience, and it's a funny thing to look back on. And it sparks joy, Yeah.
But like I said, this interview was different. I had all these questions about being your radio presenting work, hosting the Brits, red carpets, all these experiences. But when we spoke yesterday, it just felt these weren't relevant in a sense of they're parts of your career, but I realised the best is yet to come.
Yeah.
And I feel we'll be doing this interview again in a few years' time, and that will be your life story.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on today, and thanks for telling your story. But there is one more story I want you to tell. Mm-hmm. It was yesterday you said about a trip that you went on, and it was big, like kind of a life experience for you.
This was almost like the moment of I thought you were going to tell them the story about the towels.
That was a genuine thing as well. And when you said, that's my kind of humour, it's a joke.
It's so funny. So when we got to the hotel yesterday, there was we spent the day like sunbathing, and we were like, we're gonna go to have like a sauna and a steam room when we get back to the hotel. And Lewis took us to the spa and walked through the door, and he just stood there and went, we need to find out where the towels are. And behind him was just like this wall, and I'm joking, of towels. It was probably a be there moment. Most of my jokes are. I just cracked up. I thought you were telling a joke. It was really funny. You were being serious. I was like, where do you think they are? And you turn around and you're out.
I thought she was like cleaning them and there was like a box you go and get them out of. But then you were like, oh, that's my kind of humour. I was like, slightly awkward.
I thought you were joking, like, let's find out where the towels are. And they were like right behind you. The whole wall, I'm not even joking, the whole wall was covered in towels. And there was a stack on the side of like a pyramid of towels. Funny. And then, the moment the story you wanted me to tell was kind of my moment of awakening, I suppose, if without sounding too spiritual, which I am very spiritual. And I would, it was after hospital. So I had my tonsils out. I was grief-stricken by Ollie's passing. And I had planned to go on a trek to Slovenia to raise some money for charity. Because Grief Encounter are an amazing charity. They do a lot of creative work with children. Most importantly, I had a group of people with me they'd all experienced grief. They're all people that had been bereaved, who had amazing stories to tell. So we were walking along this river for days at a time and just hearing all of these stories. I felt heard. I could hear their stories and feel like I wasn't alone in it all. And there was one specific person, Molly, who I just really vibed with. And we have since become best friends. Like, we're really, really close. She had the energy that I've got, you know. We were like going on these, we were like on an adventure, like hand in hand, talking about grief, talking about the ways we cope with it. But also, she is just so joyous. She is like this bundle of energy that I was like, you're like me. I love you. I love you to bits. And yeah, it was just really, really healing. I kind of had these moments where she was just like, you have to believe in yourself. You know, you have to get through this and fight the walls that you've put up, because there's just been so many blockages that I've put up myself, that other people have put up around me, that I've just had to smash down bit by bit, and to let my energy flow from my heart. And that was what, like, that trip to Slovenia was incredible, because it just helped me breathe again. I think for such a long time I felt suffocated by an industry, suffocated by myself, suffocated by the grief, suffocated by, like, you know, the list goes on. The coping mechanisms of people, right? That I got out of London, I got out of the hospital room, and I just was like, whoa, there is so much more to life than what I've led myself to believe, what I've been conditioned to believe. And I spent some time really like going in and thinking what I want from life. Who am I? You know, what I want to do with all of this energy. And that's when I got back and was like, I'm gonna do music. My promise to myself was that in 2025, I'm gonna put all my energy into the music that I've already got. You know, it wasn't hard. It's been 6 months. We've done this album in 6 months because the music was there. I just had to sit down with my band members and just be like, this is it. And yeah, without that moment of just like clarity, I think in London it's easy with the concrete jungle that it is. You get so like overwhelmed, and it can just become a part of you. To get out of that and just to feel free. I think freedom is a key part of like all of this, you know. When you look at the controlling nature of the industry, the opposite side of it is freedom. Your voice, your art, your creativity, that's all what freedom is. And that's what I'm passionate about sharing, is that people should be able to express themselves freely, that we should be able to be the people that we are freely and love freely. And yeah, it's been a journey.
And you've done that with the singles as well. You know, people really, when the singles are out, they're gonna feel that. So I want to say thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for telling your story. Thank you for having me. George Shelley, everybody. Give him a big clap. Make it sound like there's more in the room. Thank you.